The atomic number is the number of protons. The atomic number, or the number of protons, is shown as the whole number on the periodic table. So we see here for neon that the number of protons in a neon atom is 10. The number of protons determines what type of atom you have. That is, the atomic number determines the identity. Anything that has only 10 protons is a neon atom. Now, when we talk about the mass number of an atom, we need to take the number of protons plus the number of neutrons. We do not add in the number of electrons, and that's because electrons don't have hardly any mass. Protons and neutrons each weigh about the same as each other, so when we find the mass number, we add the protons plus the neutrons. The mass number is not found on the periodic table. There is a strong tendency among some first-year chemistry students to think that this number here is the mass number for all neon atoms. It is not. It is an average number. So the mass number for an atom will be an integer. It's simply the protons plus the neutrons. When we want to find the net charge on something, we consider the number of protons it has and the number of electrons it has, but not the number of neutrons. And that's because neutrons don't have any charge. So if you have more of them or fewer of them, it doesn't affect the net charge. If there are the same number of protons as electrons, of course the thing will have no net charge. If there is an imbalance in the protons and electrons, then the thing will have a charge. Something that has a non-zero net charge is called an ion. There are two types of ions, anions and cations. Anions are negatively charged ions, and they're negatively charged because they have more electrons than they do protons. Cations are positively charged because they have more protons than they do electrons. An anion is formed, in other words, it acquires a state of having more electrons than protons by gaining electrons. A cation ends up with more protons than electrons by giving away or losing electrons. So the number of protons doesn't change. It's the number of electrons. If something gains electrons, it becomes an anion. If something loses electrons, it becomes a cation. So here are a couple of mnemonics that might help you remember that anions are negative ions and cations are positively charged. And you can see the word anions right there are negative ions. So that might help you remember that anions are negative ions. When you see a cation, you see a positive ion. That is, you see a positive ion. Look at that. There's a plus sign right there in the word cation. When you see a cation, you see a positive ion. And completely unrelated to anything in chemistry, in case you're wondering what that is, in the upper right corner, that is a cation of fish. Or you could say that it's a cat keeping an eye on a fish. Moving along. So let's fill in this table. On the left we have the description, how many protons, neutrons, and electrons, and our job is to figure out the charge, the atomic number, the mass number, and the ion symbol. So for this first row, we see that we have 15 protons, so that's the atomic number. The mass number is going to be the sum of the protons plus the neutrons, so that's going to be 15 plus 16, which is 31. To find the net charge, we consider the number of protons versus electrons. We can see here that we have 15 protons and 18 electrons, which means there is a net charge of 3 minus. In other words, there are 3 electrons that aren't accounted for by protons, so the net charge is 3 minus. Now when we write the ion symbol, what we do is we look up the element on the periodic table, and then if the thing has a net charge, we write that up and to the right of the atom symbol. So what we're going to do is look up element number 15 on the periodic table, because anything with 15 protons is phosphorus, and the net charge on this is 3 minus, so we write the 3 minus up and to the right. Let's try the next one. The atomic number is going to be 38 because that's how many protons it has. The mass number will be the sum of the protons plus the neutrons, which is 38 plus 50. That's 88. The net charge, we need to consider 38 protons versus 36 electrons. Well, here there are 2 more protons than there are electrons, so the net charge on this is going to be 2 plus. To write the ion symbol, we look up element number 38 on the periodic table, which is Sr, and then we write the charge up and to the right. Let's try the next one. Here we're given the mass number to be 128 and the ion symbol to be Te2 minus. Well, if it says Te, we should be able to find Te, which is tellurium, on the periodic table, and it's element number 52, which means it's got 52 protons. Notice here that the net charge is shown on the ion symbol, so I've put that right there. The mass number is 128. Well, we know that the mass number is protons plus neutrons. So if we take 128 minus 52, we get 76 neutrons. And then we need to find the net charge. We've got 52 protons, but the net charge tells us that we have 2 more electrons than we do protons. So that's going to be 54. Let's try the last row. Here we have a net charge of 1 plus, and we're told that we have 18 electrons. Therefore, we must have 19 protons. And that also must be the atomic number. We can then look up element number 19 on the periodic table, and we see that it's potassium, and this potassium thing has a 1 plus charge. So I'm going to write the ion symbol as K plus. Then we're told that the mass number is 39. Mass number is protons plus neutrons, so 39 minus 19 must give us 20 neutrons. Whenever we write the charge in an ion symbol, if the charge is 1 plus or 1 minus, we usually don't write the 1. As you can see in the lower right corner here, I didn't write K1 plus, I just wrote K plus. If some ion has a negative charge, -1 charge, we just write the symbol and then write a minus. We usually don't write 1 minus or 1 plus. It isn't wrong to do that, but typically whenever the charge is just 1 plus or 1 minus, we don't write the 1. If it's something else, like here 2 minus or 2 plus or 3 minus, then we have to put the number. Let's summarize. The atomic number is the number of protons in a nucleus. It determines the identity of an atom and is the integer found in each element's space on the periodic table. The mass number is the simple sum of the protons and neutrons, because protons and neutrons both have a mass of about 1 AMU. Electrons have little mass and are not used to find the mass number, which is not shown on the periodic table. Net charge is found by comparing the protons to the electrons. Neutrons are not considered because they have no charge. Cations have a positive charge because they have more protons than electrons. Cations have lost 1 or more electrons. Anions are negative because they have more electrons than protons. Anions have gained 1 or more electrons.